Well, happy Saturday, folks. The real Captain Kirk here. We're live from One Bethlehem Plaza here on the 4th of January, 2025. Hard to believe here. There was some concern here. We'd have a little stronger La Nina than we're going to have here. It looks like it may not even officially ever be declared a La Nina, which is simply the cooling of the equatorial Pacific. We definitely have that. Again, it's definitely much colder than last year's more El Nino-like conditions. See that here with the map here animated. But again, models may say it may never officially be declared a La Nina. So it's the weak negative phase, which is good news if you like cold and snow, which we're getting pretty much in the eastern half of the country, because that's what a weak La Nina would do versus a stronger one would shut down some of that cold and snow. So again, good news if you like a colder, snowy winter, because we're certainly going to have that in the eastern half of the country. Severe weather ended with a bang here, again, going out pretty strong here in December. Had a big uptick in tornadoes right at the end of the year here in mid-December. So again, ended up about where we expected, most in 13 years, 1,881 cases. Hail was actually down versus last year, below average. And wind, while down a bit versus last year, was still well above average. So 2024, severe weather season's in the history books. Next year, unfortunately, we think it's going to be less of tornadoes and wind, and probably more of terms of wildfires, drought, and maybe hail in parts of the north central Great Lakes areas. Looking at snow cover here this morning, this is going to expand pretty dramatically here with a system going from Kansas to Virginia here this week. So only 30% of the country with snow, but again, dramatic change from last year in terms of southern Canada, Great Lakes, interior Northeast. So much more snow. Again, snowiest in 4 years, season to date, interior Northeast. So much more than we've had recently. This, again, snow cover, we'll see a big uptick here as we go through the next few days here, with about 60% of the country getting some snow. Season-to-date snowfall here from NOAA shows that, again, overall about 46% more snow than last year. Still third least in 40 years, so not a lot. And again, a lot of it's because the west looks like a lot, but that's really not that much out west. Northeast is actually, again, in some cases still above average season-to-date. Looking at U.S. weekly snowfall trends here now, the bars show you the year-on-year change. So blue's much snowier than last year. Yellows are less snowier than that same week last year. So one more big snowy week here ending this week here, the 4th of January, much snowier than last year and the snowiest week of winter so far. But the next 2 weeks here going into mid-January are actually even more, exponentially more snow. It's more snow in terms of what we've seen so far this winter, but it's less than last year's pretty historic heavy snows that we had with the polar vortex that invaded, as you recall, in mid-month last year. So it's going to be a snowy period from a versus average perspective. Again, just not quite as snowy as last year. And this is just season to date, 1 September through 4 January snowfall across the world. A lot of areas have had well over 120 inches. In fact, there's some areas across there in Western Canada and Siberia were just epic feet of snow. With the cold snap we had here right before Christmas and then coming here again, flu has seen its peak most likely, again probably here now through early January. So it's definitely had a huge surge here with that colder weather. And again, hopefully this is it was a very late start, latest start in 3 years here. So you can see that big, huge peak we had back 2 years ago around Thanksgiving. This year's peaking late December, early January. So hopefully it's on its way down. If you're not feeling that great, it's hopefully the end is near. Look at last week, world summer here ending today. Here in the U.S., after the cold week right before Christmas now, 2.3 warmer than last year, 8th warmest in 40 years, above average. 247% wetter than last year, 17th wettest in 40 years, so slightly above average. And snowfall, 338% more than last year, most in 3 years. Still a little bit below average, but again, a much snowier pattern here. Maps inset left are the trends versus average. Big map here is the trends versus last year, how our retail supply side clients like to look at the weather. If we look at this week, again, big change here. You can see the Arctic air has invaded the eastern half of the country. So again, much, much colder in the eastern half of the country. Still warm out west. See that really dark blue band there? That's where all the snow is going to be. So really from Kansas into Virginia, snowfall totals here probably in this model depiction here is probably a little overdone, but it's going to be a good 6 to 12 inches all across Kansas, through southern Illinois, southern Ohio Valley, into even the Washington, D.C., Virginia areas. So again, a lot of snow. 6.5, colder than last year, colds in 8 years, 9th colds in 40 years. So again, a good cold, strong week for seasonal sales. Snowfall, while down 18% from last year, still 14th most in 40 years. Again, we're just up against very, very snowy conditions last year, most in 10, 15 years. So again, still a snowy week in terms of averages. 66% drier than last year, 20th driest in 40 years, so about in the middle of the pack for precip. Look at the 6-day snowfall animation here. You're going to see the storm system coming out of the Rockies and then hits there in Kansas with a good 8 to 12, few areas may even get over a foot of snow here in Kansas, and then it traverses into the mid-Atlantic, just south of our offices here in WT360's headquarters here in Bethlehem, but southern New Jersey, Maryland, Baltimore, D.C. So a lot of big cities getting some very heavy snow, probably the most snow they've seen in several years with this system traversing the central U.S. Tuesday and then Wednesday, things that lighten up a bit, just some light snow. So we aggregate the 6-day totals here, 4% more than last year, most in 8 years, ninth most in 40 years, so well above average. And snow for 60% of the country, so that's a lot of the population having some snow. Look at these 14-day animation maps here, temps left, precip right. There's a few more snow systems potential. Again, it's a coldish, dryish pattern to some extent, so you don't need much moisture to make some snow, so we'll have to watch these systems as they traverse because they could surprise us, just as this one here going across the U.S. this week is doing. But general theme is the cold remains in the eastern half of the country with warming trend in the central plains as we go into next week. Looking at next week again, 12 through 18 January here. So again, big warmer trend. Again, keep in mind, this was the polar vortex last year, so it was just epically cold. All the cars stranded in Chicago and couldn't recharge the cars because it was frigid. So 7.3 warmer than last year, but that's misleading because it's still 10th coldest in 40 years, so well below average national temperatures, especially for the eastern half of the country. Some warming trend there in the northern plains. Snowfall, while again down 28%, still 8th most in 40 years, so well above average. And again, drier, 44% drier, dries in 4 years, and that is below average. If we aggregate the Q4 weather trends here, so this is year-on-year weather trends, how our retail customers are kind of in the tail end of Q4 here. So we had a really strong December. December was good beginning and the middle, right before Christmas, and then you had a little bit milder weather right at Christmas, which was good for maybe some clearance sales, and then now another big cold blast and a warm-up, and then maybe another cold blast at the end of the month. So going forward here, you typically want to see warm and dry weather with little snow. That's good for store traffic and overall retail sales, overall economy, GDP. Everything does better in a warmer, drier January to July timeframe. So kind of got some headwinds here for 2025 because we have a lot of colder, wetter, snowy weather even all the way into May and June. So it's going to be not snow in June, but snow potentially and frost and freezes well into April and May. So some concern for the economic trends here for the front half of the year. Look at the world 2-week outlook here, ending 18 January here. So again, a cold spot in the world. It's going to be right here in the U.S., especially Central East, and a little bit up there in the U.K. Again, warming a bit across Europe. Precip trends versus average inset left. And if we aggregate all the rain and snow for the 2-week period, again, looks like a lot, and it is in parts of the country of the U.S., so some snowy weather there. So folks, we hope you have a great week ahead, and again, have a great start to 2025.